So in the Valorant 2 matches, I went 2-0 this time around. Very nice. But I think they were fairly fairly easy to predict. So now let's head into the map selections for the upper final match as well as the lower round 3 match. And first up, we have Nongshim versus NRG, and I think this is a really close match. Or I think in general, all four of the remaining teams, they looked really strong, and they should, like every match that we're gonna get from this point onward, should be really close and should be really exciting. But yeah, let's head right into it. And I think Nongshim's perma ban in Pearl works out fairly decent versus NRG because, well, Pearl probably NRG's best map, or at least from what we've seen, looked like their best, or at least one of their best maps. Then for NRG's map ban, I think they should keep, or they should ban Bind, because even though they just won versus Paper X on that map, I still kind of feel like they didn't look incredible on that map themselves, and just Paper X looked really bad. And yeah, I don't know. I think the other option really to ban would be Split, and I think Nongshim is better on Bind than they are on Split, so because of that, I think it will work out better for them to ban Bind. But regardless, I don't think, or I think that you could make the case that Nongshim would pick Bind if Energy doesn't ban it, but I don't think it really changes anything which way around they ban it. And then for Energy's map pick, I think it's very straightforward. They should pick Abyss. It is one of their best maps, and it is not a great map for Nongshim. It looked like probably the worst map, right? Pretty much any map that they can't play Neon on, they just don't look as good, right? Which is the case for like Abyss as well as Split, and kind of for Breeze. You can kind of make the same argument, although we've only seen them once on their map, and we don't know which comp they would try to play since we've seen some Neon on that map. So their Breeze might actually be better than I think, but we will have to wait and see if they end up playing that map at all this tournament. At least in the best of fives, it should happen, right? And they're already confirmed to play at least one. But yeah, I think for Energy, this would be a great map pick for them, and they should win on that map. And then for Nongshim, I think they will go with their best map, which is Haven. And yeah, they should win on Haven. They've looked much better. They looked really incredible. The Neon, insane on that map, right? Dumby's absolutely nuts on that champ. So yeah, I think Nongshim are gonna take that. And then Nongshim's second ban, obviously I've already talked about that. It should be Split or Bind, whichever. They didn't ban the first time around. And then for Nongshim, I've gone with them banning Breeze, because Breeze kind of feels like a 50-50 map to me. And this is obviously down to how much prep do they actually have on Breeze and how good do they feel about it. Do they play the Neon right? If they don't, then I think this is the right thing. If they do and they have some nice prep, then they should leave that map in the pool. And yeah, but I've gone with them picking or leaving Kuro to be the last map remaining. And I think it is a bit of a gamble because Nongshim Energy is really good on that map as well. I think it's really close to 50-50. I would say, with how Nongshim has looked and with how great Dambi's Neon was the last time on Corrode, I think I would give it just slightly to Nongshim, like a 55-45, but still really, really close. And yeah, it could it could end up being that NRG win this map. We haven't seen them at all at Santiago on that map, and yeah, we've only seen them play that map twice this year. So I don't know with the changes to the game with how their growth still looks, but last year they were so good. So realistically, NRG just might win on that map. But yeah, for the moment, I've gone with a 2-1 for Nongshim over NRG, but I think it's going to be really close. And then for the lower round 3 match, we have Paper X versus G2, and Paper X have their permaban in Abyss, which they're going to keep. It works out fairly well against G2, right? Abyss, I would say, one of G2's better maps, but G2 has a really strong map pool, kind of, with like one exception, and exception I think they're just gonna ban, which is Corrode. They haven't looked great on that map, so I think that should be their kind of permaban from now on, or at least for the rest of the tournament. And then for Paper X's map pick, I think they should, and they will go with Split. They've looked absolutely incredible on that map, and yeah, I would heavily favor them on Split versus G2. And then for G2, I think they have like 3 options really. I think they could choose Bind, just because Paper X has looked absolutely horrible on that map, and G2 has looked fairly good on that map. They could go with Breeze, where Paper X also hasn't looked great, and G2 has looked really good on. It was looking like one of G2's best maps. And then you could also make the argument for Haven, which has been a really strong map, maybe even G2's best map. But on the other hand, I would say that Paper X has looked fairly decent at Haven, right? They're 4-1, so yeah, they also looked fairly decent on that map, and I think they have a better shot at either Bind or Breeze to win versus Paper X rather than on Haven. But yeah, I think the best shot they would have on Bind, but I am concerned that G2 are not gonna pick Bind just because they have maps that they would rather play. But I think this would be their smartest option, and I would favor G2, as I've said, heavily on that map. But yeah, for the second rotation of map bans, I think G2 would get rid of Pearl, just because it's their least played and probably the worst out of the remaining maps. And then for Paper X, I think they would rather get rid of Breeze and keep in Haven, since I think they looked stronger on Haven overall. And yeah, that would leave Haven as the remaining map. And yeah, kind of as I've talked about a bit beforehand, I think G2 are still favorites over Paper X on that map. And so I think it's gonna be a 2-1 for G2 over Paper X, but yeah, that's just with how the maps have looked from both of these teams. I do think that for Paper X, especially, individuals can always take over, and yeah, the individuals for Paper X can certainly win the maps that they shouldn't win normally, and I have no doubt that even against G2 they can make that work and make that happen, and then it could be a 2-1 or 2-0 even for Paper X over G2. But yeah, I just think the most realistic, the sensible thing to do is to go for a 2-1 for G2 over Paper X. So yeah, that's how I see the map selection for these 2 games shaking out. Let me know what you guys think, and who do you have winning, who do you think is gonna make the final first, and yeah, who will be eliminated in 4th. And yeah, then we'll see each other for the lower final match, and I'll see you guys next time.